Mariel, welcome to the show. This is such a long time coming, and I'm so excited for you to be here. Thank you for being here.
I am so excited. This is coming at the perfect time for me as well. So grateful to be here.
Tell me why this is like the perfect time for the universe to put us together on the mic.
So, I am a formal special ed teacher and I turned a money educator. And last year, I took the entire academic year off to focus on my business, to decide how it was that I wanted to teach. Not just am I going to do one on one coaching or am I going to do workshops, but also how do I acknowledge that money is not just about money. I just finished that year off and I'm about to make a decision in the next few months of whether I'll be going back to teaching or continuing this full time entrepreneurial journey that happened because of a lot of the things that you do, Janice, including your Master the Mic course that I was in that gave me a voice. And I have been podcasting for a year now. And so that's why I'm celebrating being here a year after actually I joined that course.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, what a full circle moment. That's incredible. And I remember us brainstorming. You already came in knowing like what you wanted to talk about, the idea of the show. Tell us about the show and kind of where the inspiration came from for you to show up on the mic.
So the show is called Chinga Tu Money. And it's a place where people can go. And the title is like that on purpose because I think when we think about money, immediately some of us might feel ugh, right, boring. So I'm like, okay, a show like Chinga Tu Money, someone might say, okay, let me see what they have to say. And really the show came because I was a full-time teacher and I didn't have time to do the money classes, to talk about money online. And I told myself I have way too much to share, so I have to find a way to do that, and that became podcasting.
There's so much value that all of us have with telling our stories. And so much of what I've found on this show has been it's almost like we've created a safe space for people to talk about the things that they just haven't felt comfortable talking about when it comes to dinero. And so I want to talk about your story. What is your money story? What did you experience growing up with money? Where's your family from? Tell us all the tea.
Gladly. I am from the 956, which if you are in South Texas, you know that we call that the Valley. I've been in San Antonio for 10 years though, but I share that because growing up, what I really noticed about my upbringing was that my parents' view on money was very different. And I tended to lean more towards the side of my dad, who always talked about being responsible with money, saving your money, not missing the payments. But I also acknowledged that my mom lived very abundantly because she did work hard. She did pay her bills, but she was also a lot more open with spending, maybe not as long term of a thinker as my dad. And so growing up, I watched both of my parents work two jobs to make ends meet. And it wasn't until my late high school, I believe, where my dad finally got one job that paid him what he needed. And I didn't notice this until later. As a young adult, I had internalized, and it is okay, by the way, I had internalized it's okay to have two jobs to make ends meet, not realizing absolutely it's okay. And you can also find one job that pays you well. And so, up until a few years ago, I was stuck in this under earning cycle where I only was making 30K a year. But I'm proud of that because during that time, I also learned about personal finance. I started maxing out my IRA. And I will say that I am on track to be at least a millionaire, maybe a multimillionaire by the time that I retire.
We love to hear it. Okay. I think you have a very common experience with people who come from first gen households, right? It's like you just understand that like the struggle is the default, that you should be grateful for what you have, like these aspirations for big, grand, luxurious living, that's for other people. We don't do that here. And so when you start learning about money, you start learning about the power of investing and compound interest and how the wealthy actually get wealthy. Like, what are some of the first realizations that you have about like maybe what we're getting wrong in the Latino community specifically about money?
I think it's really hard to imagine something that you've never experienced or seen. And because you've never experienced or have seen it, how can you possibly work towards it? And so this is why it's so important to surround yourself with people who are doing more. maybe first gen, might be second gen, might be fifth gen, whatever it is, but they're doing more that are showing you another way. In fact, during my early 20s, I met a straight white older man, and I saw him working remotely. I saw him traveling the world. I saw him being the entrepreneur that he was. And that's kind of where I had a little spark. So I think the mistake, or the unfortunate reality, is that sometimes we can't see what we can't see. And we need to get in the spaces where we can be inspired, right? Where we are the person who maybe is working towards something, as opposed as being the one that, quote, already made it because you have a stable 9 to 5, because that's not where the cap is.
Yeah. I think that is kind of the goal for a lot of people, right? Especially the ones who come from households where your parents are pushing you to go to college because nobody's gone to college before. It's like that's the level of success that they can see as the ultimate version of the American dream, right? And for a lot of us, when we do accomplish those things and we get into these spaces and we realize like maybe this isn't all it was cracked up to be, but our parents just had this very different perspective on like what success looks like, what stability looks like, and what that American dream looks like, right? And so I'm curious for you because now you are in this sabbatical kind of transition period. What was the impetus for you to like say, I need to take a break and just like focus on this other thing that I'm passionate about? And what was your family's reaction to? Because I know oftentimes like we carry so much weight about the expectations and the reactions to the decisions that we make that may not make sense to other people, especially when like you've quote unquote made it.
When I told my mom that I was teaching people how to invest for retirement, her response was, no te vayas a meter en problemas. Don't get yourself into trouble. Because she doesn't know, she doesn't understand that in order to retire, you need to invest in a retirement account, right? And so they kind of know that I have an entrepreneurial thing. I'll be honest with you, and this is probably not good, but my parents still think that I was a full time teacher last year. I didn't necessarily lie to them. I didn't really sit down with them. Hey, mommy, daddy, like, check it out. I will say I was substituted here and there. So, I mean, I'm still working at the school. Hey, I'm still teaching about money, right? I'm still a teacher.
Okay. So mommy and papi don't necessarily know what's going on. And sometimes, honestly, that is for the best because if you're the type of person that's like easily influenced by the opinions of others, that could be the thing that's like making you second guess yourself, not take that leap. And so sometimes I think it is good to keep certain things like close to the chest until, people need to know on a need to know basis. It's like as long as your bills are getting paid and you're not asking them to like move back into the house, not necessarily the best reason to like stress them out because more than likely that's probably what telling them is going to do, right?
Well, and then to that point, I've always been someone who has been pretty self-sufficient, right? So they don't know that I've been in this under earning cycle and that I'm finally gaining the confidence to use my voice, to monetize my skills. I mean, I have a great relationship with them. So it's not like I'm necessarily hiding it from them. It's just that when I talk about what I'm doing, I keep it general. Here's how I teach. Yes, I'm still working at this school. Here's what my mom knows I have a podcast. They know I won a grant a few years back, but they're not too quite sure about the intricacies. And so that being said, though, I think now would be the perfect time. Now that I have arrived, I'm ready to be visible. Maybe this is kind of like the push that I need to sit them down and let them know what's up.
Absolutely. Yeah, just share this episode with them and let me know what they say. So, what was that spark that made you want to take the sabbatical, right? Because a lot of people have like this come to Jesus moment, if you will, where you're just like, I can't keep doing this. Like, there ain't no way. So, what was that moment for you?
Well, the moment was just understanding how much I have the power within me to change someone's life through investing, not because I'm a great teacher, but because investing is so misunderstood and there's a lot of fear around it. And how can you not? How can you not teach the thing that you know can change people's lives, because investing can be simple. And really it was that, just going from my parents don't necessarily have the retirement account. They've been working their butts off for decades, right? But they didn't learn about saving for retirement. And so really it was that moment where I'm actually on track to be a millionaire. And why should I not share that with the world? Right. And I wasn't taking action, Janice. I was at the school. I couldn't really do the things that I wanted to do. And so I thought, well, if not now, when, right? I didn't have kids, I didn't have pets. At the time, I didn't have a boyfriend either. And it was kind of like, what are you doing, girl? Just go for it.
So, what did you do to set yourself up financially to be able to take that break, right? Because a lot of folks dream about taking, a year off to travel or pursue that passion project and whatnot. But oftentimes it's the money situation that keeps them from being able to do that, whether it's you have a bunch of debt or you are, a single parent and you don't have the income, the flexibility, any of that. So, what did you do specifically to give yourself some runway?
I saved a lot of money. I probably saved around $12,000. Half of that was meant to be an emergency fund, and the other half was meant to be, hey, if I'm not going to make money, here's what I have to fall back on. And really, that was the plan. I'm saving money to make the jump because I knew that I am someone that requires a level of safety. And I didn't think that I could. Looking back, I wasn't ready. I didn't have the belief in myself yet to say, hey, like I'm going to make the money. And so I saved that. It's kind of simple.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it really is just being intentional about creating that runway for yourself. And I think it's also perfectly okay to take maybe a more conservative approach, right? And a lot of that will depend on kind of the space that you have in your life. So, me as a side hustler, like I was trying various business ideas for years while working full time. And one of the things that I did to kind of carve out some space for me to be able to do that was pursue remote work, right? So I realized very quickly that like eliminating a commute, literally, hours a day that I don't have to spend in a car stuck in traffic, that gave me back a lot of time that I can then pour into side projects after I was done with my job. Also, just keeping my cost of living low so that I could be more intentional about saving and investing and pouring into the business and things like that. So it does take some level of just planning, right? To give yourself that space. I want to know more about what you just mentioned though, because I think this is an area of entrepreneurship that a lot of people don't realize is going to be probably the single most important area to focus on, which is the mental aspect of it for you. So you say you weren't ready to show up. What does that mean and how did that actually manifest in your early business ideas or even like the marketing of yourself and all that?
I didn't know that I was insecure. I didn't know that I didn't love myself as much as I thought that I did. I didn't know any of those things. I thought I'm confident. I've done this, I've done that. I I think I'm a good-looking girl. Like I felt confident. I thought that I was. But the work that I've done this year has really shown me how much healing I needed to do. One of the biggest things was that I was in a relationship where I experienced emotional abuse. And because of that, I learned to be quiet so that there was less conflict, so that I was safe. And of course, that's going to bleed into how I show up as a business owner. Through this year, I've been seeing, okay, girl, like, where's this life saving information that you said that you have? Why aren't you going out there? You said you were going to reach out to these people. Why haven't you done it? Why are you scared to go live on Instagram? Right? All these things. And so there is a lot, both personal, for example, this past relationship, and also the belief around comfortably telling people in a way that's not icky, right? Like you don't want to be sliding into DMs, never having met the person, like not even knowing their name, right? But feeling comfortable in organically making connections and just letting people know what it is that you have to offer. I didn't have that. And I'm still working on that.
Yeah. I am so glad that you're talking about this because this is actually a something that I've tackled in my latest offer, the 5K in 5 days challenge. So, one of the things that we tackle in this 5-day live challenge is just the fear of showing up, right? Of like literally making connection. Like connection equals dollars, y'all. That's literally how you make money, right? You get opportunities by talking to people, by networking, by putting yourself out there for public consumption. And that definitely will open up the can of worms that you have about insecurities if you were bullied, if you were had crazy shit said to you on social media. Like there is a level of vulnerability that is required to show up as a public figure, as someone who wants to be a thought leader, an expert that wants to help people with what they have to offer. And that's why I tell people like entrepreneurship is the single most powerful form of personal development that you will probably go on, besides like maybe having a child. You will confront every limiting belief that you have. You will confront every trigger, every negative thought pattern that you have is going to come out through this process. And until you master your mind, the cracks are going to show, as they say. So I'm curious, like, what have you done to, work on your mental mindset? Because that is at the core of it, what we need to do, both if you want to start a business, but also if you want to like do things that you haven't seen others do with your money.
I think the biggest thing I've done has been just to take the action. I identify myself as a type A kind of person, and I'm in Kat Del Carmen's group coaching, and then I hired her to work with me one to one, and I just noticed how rigid my thinking is. It has to be this way. I have to do X, Y, or Z first. And in working with Kat, I just kind of saw you're getting lost in the details and you're not doing anything. You're not taking the action. So what I started to do is just take the action and it'd be okay. For example, in one of my challenges recently, I sent out an email. I forgot to put the title on it. And I genuinely was like, it's okay. Like, I've been giving value. They're going to be all right. And you know what? It was okay. And so, what I will say is just take the action. People are not like scrutinizing your every single move, especially if it's somebody that is in your community that has known you, that wants to learn from you. So, that would be my number one tip. Just take the action and show your brain that it's okay when you make mistakes. You actually are fine afterwards.
Mm, I love it. Yes, that's an important reminder, y'all. Do the scary shit because the scary shit can change your life. All right, let's talk about investing, right? Because that is probably very fucking scary for a lot of people. I know I have lots of conversations where people are just like, but I'm going to lose my money. I don't know what to do. There's so many symbols. And what the hell does this mean? Where do I start? And what account do I open? And where do I open it? And it just can become this like analysis paralysis situation. So tell us how you started investing and now like how you advise and educate your clients to start.
I was very scared, very terrified. I didn't want to lose anything, but I did know how important it was to start investing. So the way that I began was the Robinhood app gives you like a free stock. And so I thought, okay, it's free. I'm not going to lose anything, let me just try it. So I did. And then once I saw it on my app, I kind of saw, how it worked. I'm like, oh, well, this chart really isn't that scary. I only had one stock, right? So it kind of just introduced me to the idea of, okay, wealth is at my fingertips in my smartphone. All right. And then through my learning more, because my recommendation is not for people to start on Robinhood, my recommendation is for people to start in a retirement account with one of the, I will say, the better ones, right? Like,
The OGs.
yeah, the OGs. So through my learning about investing journey, I realized, oh, there are different reasons to invest. And I want to teach about investing for retirement because I strongly believe that's where people should start. And once you know that you're ready to go for retirement, then you can go to other types of retirement. So my recommendation for people has always been to understand that there's a lot of reasons to invest, and a lot of the times the scary things that people are talking about online, on the news, typically has to do with a different type of investing that's known as day trading. And investing for retirement really can be quite simple. My recommendation is always start with investing for retirement. I also want people to know that you mentioned that, am I going to lose my money? I always start with, hey, you actually have the choice to decide whether to sell something or not. And you only, quote, lose the money if you sell, right? But if you're buying quality investments, if you're doing your research, if you are taking finance courses to learn what's going on, you might be okay. You're probably going to be okay, especially if you're investing for the long term. The way of teaching that I do is just educating on, these people might be talking about that, but this is what me and you are talking about right here. And here's what that looks like for us.
What's your rationale for wanting people to focus on retirement first?
My rationale is that right now we have the time that's required for the compound interest to do the work. So that's one. Like, we need to start now when we're young, but that doesn't quite answer your question. So the answer to your question is that when we are older, when we are 65 or 70, we may not be able to, well, no, we can't. We can't go back in time to take care of us then, right? We can invest what we can at that point. But for me, the philosophy is do what you can now to take care of future you, because we don't know what's going to be going on with us when we're that age, right? And that's really it, because right, for at least for me personally, right now I'm young, right? Do I like to work? No, not all the time, right? But I'm able to. I'm able to. So if I need to make something happen, I can. However, I don't know what it's going to be like when I'm 65, when I'm 70, right? Maybe even when I'm 55. So I want to make sure that I'm taking care of myself, future me, and I want to teach others to do the same, or at least to know the differences between investing for retirement and investing in other types of investing accounts.
Yeah. I think it's an important point, right? Because when you're young, it's very easy to not be able to picture 65-year-old self. All we got to do is like look around to the older people in your family. Like, who made the decision that made sense to retire and who prepared and who didn't? And look how they're living, right? I have relatives who, they work their little fancy like New York City jobs. They got their pension, they retired, they got their house paid off, and they're living good. And then I have the relatives that are like, never invested a dollar, literally going to work till they die. Which one do you want to be? Right. And so we have to assume that we will reach an age where either we don't want to work anymore or we literally cannot work anymore for a various amount of reasons. Maybe you have to quit your job to become a full-time caretaker. Maybe you become sick or disabled, or any number of things can happen, right? And so I like to see retirement as like an insurance policy against poverty in old age. That's literally what you're doing. You're building yourself an insurance policy that is going to give you the freedom to have some dignity in your last days, which I think we all deserve after slaving away in this capitalist fucking system. The least that you can do for yourself is give yourself a break at some point.
I agree. And I too see people around me, teachers, as a former teacher, I see these teachers who gave their career to serve the greater good, for the love of children, X, Y, or Z, and they don't have the equivalent of in teaching, it's called a 403B, and they don't have that. Now they do have the teacher retirement system here in Texas, but it's not enough. It doesn't even account for inflation when they get the money. And it's just a shame, because it's not that people aren't smart enough, it's just that people don't have access to the information. And yes, it's online, but there are so many barriers that are there. For example, I think one of the things that I teach is that the term saving for retirement is misleading, because people think that all you have to do is save the money. However, when you realize, well, no, baby girl, you have to invest it so it can grow, that's when it clicks for a lot of people. That's when it clicked for me. So I agree with you. There are way too many hardworking people reaching retirement age that are unable to retire.
Yeah. Okay, so let's dive into kind of strategically what investing for retirement can look like for people, right? So there are obviously like workplace retirement accounts. You mentioned the 403B if you're a teacher, there's the 401k for private corporate employees. What other options do we have? And like, how do you advise people to kind of prioritize what accounts to invest in?
That's a great question. So, if you are in the US, at least this is specific to the US because I know you have international listeners, but most people who have earned income can invest in what's called an IRA, which stands for an individual retirement account. And this includes children. So if you have a child that has earned income, they can invest for retirement in what's called a custodial IRA. So I just want to say that too for all my small business owners, entrepreneurs that may not have access to an employer sponsored account, that's something that is available to you.
Yep, my 5-month-old daughter has a custodial Roth IRA, just FYI, y'all. So this can start very young, and that's life-changing stuff if you get started that soon.
I agree. Absolutely. And so just know that too. And I mean, Janice is the perfect example, right? She learned about saving for retirement, investing for retirement, about building wealth. And now she's handing down that knowledge to her child. So for all my parents out there too, when I talk to a lot of parents, they think, oh, well, what can I do for my child? And my answer is always, you can model. You can save for retirement first for yourself, mom, dad, And once you're set up, then you can set up your child. But to answer your question, if you have access to multiple retirement accounts, like let's say that you are an employee that has access to a 401k, the strategy for them would be to see with your employer, see if they offer a company match, invest up to the contribution match. And then this is general rule of thumb, right? Of course, do your own research, do what's right for you. But a way to maximize your money is to invest up to the company match and then consider if you qualify for a Roth IRA, switching over to that Roth IRA, maxing that out. And once you max that out, then come back to your 401k and max that out. And the reason for that is that any money that you invest into a Roth IRA will be tax free at retirement. That being said, some people may not qualify for a Roth, in which case you can do the traditional IRA. There is a lot of options, but step one is reach out to your employer, see what is available to you, and know that you also have the IRA, the individual retirement account, available to you as well.
Yeah. I think it's also important for folks to know that there are spousal IRAs for folks who are stay at home parents. Okay. So just because you decide to leave the workforce, there are still ways for you, your spouse essentially, to save for your retirement. And that needs to be a fucking serious conversation. Like, I hate the idea of giving up your financial autonomy to be a stay at home parent. Like, I understand why people do it financially, emotionally. There's lots of different ways to do this, but if it comes at the expense of your financial security, absolutely, it's a hell no for me. Okay. So that is a serious conversation that you need to have with your partner to make sure that you are also being taken care of in exchange for what I would argue is the hardest job in the world.
I agree. So if you have a conversation, if you are a stay-at-home parent with your partner, see what is already in place for saving for retirement, investing for retirement. And I will tell you that a lot of the like the OG companies, like we were talking about, like Fidelity, Vanguard, all those guys, call them up and say, "Hey, stay at home parent, married. Can you tell me more about the spousal IRA?" And they will tell you it is their job to answer those questions because absolutely your partner can contribute to that spousal IRA on your behalf. So make sure you go and you do that.
Absolutely. So, one of the things that I think is very overwhelming for people once they realize, like, okay, I know I have to invest, and fine, I have a 401k at work, but like, what the hell am I actually buying? So, can you explain to us how we can discern maybe like what's inside of your 401k? Like, what can I do with that? And then, let's say you're using an IRA because you don't have access to a 401k. Like, how do we pick our investments to make sure that we're doing something that's actually gonna help us grow our money instead of lose all of it?
So if you have a 401k, your employer will typically give you a couple of different options of what you can purchase. I will say, for the most part, the employer sponsored, for example, the 401k, they will give you kind of like, let me see, how do I explain this for someone who's just starting? They'll kind of give you, let's think about it like a cake that's already been made. They'll give you different cakes that have already been made that you can choose from, right? As opposed to you buying the eggs, you buying the flour, whatever else that you need to buy a cake. So they'll give you your options of things that you can choose from. Now you are able to like click on it's going to have this weird long name on it. You can click, you can see the breakdown of the investments that are in that cake, that investment. And then again, you can call them, have them explain to you what the hell is in this investment, right? And they ask you what your risk tolerance is. So are you more comfortable with stocks that could be a little bit riskier, but they can possibly give you more return, right? So they ask you what the mix of investments that you want in there. They can work with you to decide what your level of comfort is, right? And you're also able to change your selection with that as well. So I know it can be hard. When I was a teacher, there was a tiny, tiny, tiny little sentence at the end of an email, and it said, if you want to learn more about 403Bs, call this number. And it's kind of a shame. So, but know that there are people that are there that you can call that will help you. Call them, ask them the questions, and they will let you know. Okay, so that's step one. You have a 401k, TSP, 403B. Find that number, call them, ask them to explain to you what you are invested in or what your investment options are. And they will do that. It is their job. Okay. So do that. And then as far as the IRA, this one has a lot more options for you, which can be really overwhelming. But what you should know is that there is an investing strategy for every type of investor. So if you are someone that is comfortable with risk, you want to maximize your earnings, there's a strategy for you. You can pick your stocks, you can pick your what are called index funds, you can pick your bonds, you can make your cake. You can do all the ingredients, make your own cake. If you are someone that is kind of in the middle, right? You can get some pre-made things and you can also choose out your own stocks. Or if you're someone that's terrified, right? But you know that you need to do it, there is an investment that's called the Target Date Index Fund that kind of does everything for you. So it's already diversified, meaning that it already has stocks, it already has bonds, typically has international bonds too. So it's just wrapped for you together. And the way that it works is that you choose the year that you want to retire and it picks out your investment for you. So, whatever kind of investor you are, there is a strategy for you. And just know that it can be simple. It does not have to be complicated. And if you choose the strategy that is easiest, you will still retire a millionaire. And that's important to know.
I love that. And I think the confidence and your like inner belief that you can do this also comes from education. So I cannot emphasize enough like how important it is for you to learn about this stuff by like reading books, listening to podcasts, getting trusted information from a source that you feel comfortable, listening to. And these brokerage firms also have educational sections of their website where they will literally help you build your retirement plan. A lot of them are incorporating elements of AI, and robo advisors are a thing. So they can use algorithms to figure out like what your investment plan should be based on what your goals are. There's just so many resources out here, y'all, but you have to be proactive because nobody's going to take care of you unless you take care of you. So I just can't emphasize enough like how important it is to be your own advocate in these scenarios, because you also don't want to be so uneducated that like someone predatory can come and like convince you to sign up for some shit that you don't even understand, because you don't have that basic level of like foundational education to know like, oh, I actually don't want to invest in that, or I that seems expensive, that expense ratio is high. Like when you can speak the language of investing, you're a much more empowered investor.
I agree. And just to reiterate your point too about having that confidence and taking that ownership on, it's important. A lot of times we have people who understandably, and this is a wonderful place to start, by the way. So this isn't a shame thing, it's more of an informational thing, who outsource their retirement plan to either a spouse, my husband's going to do it, my wife's going to do it. And I love that you have someone in your corner. However, let's make sure that we know what's going on with that, right? Because maybe our spouse doesn't know either, right? And then the other thing too is if you outsource that decision to a financial advisor, right? Props to you because you took the step to invest, but the financial advisor might be charging you a fee. A lot of them are assets under management fee. It's called the AUM fee. Yes, you might be investing. Yes, that might be something that's off your plate, but let's make sure that we know how those fees can eat into our growth. So I'm with you. It's all about self education. It's incredibly powerful.
Absolutely. So tell me how investing has played into this sabbatical. How have you been able to continue investing with, not stable income? Because I think that's one of the things that scares people too about entrepreneurship is this idea of like, well, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to invest for retirement because I don't even know what the hell I'm going to be making every month.
So, the good part about investing for retirement is that because of advancements in technology, now you can invest with just $10 a month, right? Which is what I have been doing because it is a privilege for me to do the sabbatical, and I don't have that much money saved either. So, transparently, I invested $10 a month every single month for this last year off. And I did that because I have been investing since I was 29. I ran my numbers, did the math. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be okay if I skip a year. But what I don't want to skip is the habit of investing every month. And so I invested $10 a month working on that consistency habit. And I didn't max out my IRA for the 2024 year. And it's okay, because I know that if I continue to max it out, I'm going to be okay.
There's a lot of people that are dealing with debt. Okay. Now more than ever, I keep seeing data around credit card debt is escalating. Car notes are on average like over $700 a month for like a little piece of shit car. Housing is more unaffordable than ever. So a lot of people are asking, first of all, is retirement even possible at this point, like in this crazy ass capitalist society that like just keeps sucking me dry? What's the point? So what do you say to those folks who are just like, I can't even worry about like 20 years from now. I'm trying to worry about if my bills are going to be paid this month.
What I say to people is, I feel you. I'm with you. Like, I'm not going to pretend like what you're saying is wrong. Like, yes, I'm with you. But there's always that and, right? So again, with the investing advancements in technology nowadays, you really can invest with $5 a month. And so if you're someone who's feeling right now like, man, you're literally not thinking about investing. You're fast forwarding through this conversation, not for you. I would just say, maybe you're not doing it now, but learn about it anyway. Because I believe no matter where you are right now, there will be a point in time where you can invest. And by that point, you will have the knowledge and the confidence to do it. So that's one. It's all about believing that there's more for you. I don't know you, whoever is listening, but there is more for you. And the first step is in believing that. But as far as like the strategy as when it comes to the debt, you have to focus on one thing at a time. And that's really the reality of it. And so I would say if you are someone who has a lot of debt and that's your priority, like it's okay for that to be your priority. There's seasons, there's ebbs and flows, but I want to encourage you to not dismiss investing for retirement, because there is no way around it in this capitalistic world. And you are going to arrive at retirement. And I really, really hope that you are inspired to believe that you could have a retirement, that you can retire on time, because I know that you can. So my advice is just focus on one thing at a time, girlfriend, and then come back and do the retirement.
Yeah. You know, one thing that I think more of us need to think about too is like imagining our world outside of specifically like the United States, right? I think more and more people are coming to the realization that like you can live a great life, a much more affordable life, like in other places of the world, including a lot of places where we come from in Latin America, right? And so I am loving seeing this trend of younger people, families, like going back to the motherland and like not only for financial reasons, but also just like cultural reclamation reasons, like immersing their kids in the culture in a way that they didn't get to experience and almost like redefining what it means to be from these places because I think oftentimes we've had these perceptions, these negative perceptions of where we come from because of our family's perspective of why they left. Right. And so I think it's important for us to even entertain the idea that, like, maybe that phase of your life, retirement, means going back to Costa Rica or Guatemala or Mexico or wherever you're from because this is not what we signed up for, y'all. And I'm pretty sure, like, at this point, this is not what our family signed up for when they came to the United States. There's a lot of things that are different from what they expected for us. And I think we're coming to the realization very quickly that, like, this might not be it. And so I love the idea of just planning for retirement outside of the US. First of all, that can be much more financially feasible with a lot less money and, it could just have so many, like, intangible benefits as well of just, like, getting back to a place that is actually your community that feels safe and that feels welcoming in a way that I don't think America may ever feel that way for people of color.
I completely agree with you. I lived in Madrid for a year. I was a completely different person then. I held on to some of that essence for a little bit when I came back. And slowly but surely, I started getting annoyed again at the store if it was taking too long. And I remember when I first moved to Spain and I went to the grocery shopping and the person was taking a long time, I was so pressed, so frustrated. And like 9 months in, I realized what was so important about that. I agree. The US, it's very individualistic. It's not, we want more. We're striving for more. So I don't know, girlfriend. I agree with you. This isn't it.
The American dream is becoming the American nightmare for more and more people. And so I think, one of the things that I think is just so powerful about what you do and just talking about this topic of building wealth is that I think that is honestly the only way that we can actually change the system from within, right? Because when we think about the people who are in power and the ones who are making these terrible decisions, the common denominator is like typically these people have a lot of fucking money that they can throw around to just like fund causes that matter to them. And in some cases, that means, making this a white only country again. So when we have wealth in the hands of communities of color, that's when we actually have the ability to impact our politics, our economy, our local communities in a way that we just can't. We just can't do it without that resource. And so, what do you say to folks that are like, Mariel, like, I understand like investing is important, but I also don't want to become part of the problem by being just like another terrible rich person? How do I avoid that?
Well, some money will amplify what's already within you. One. So if you're not already going out oppressing people, terrorizing people, doing greedy things, you are not going to become that when you have money. So that's one. And two, I really want people to, I was like that. And what happens is we are repelling money. The world and your brain listens to you. So if you say, I don't want to have money because I'm going to become X, Y, or Z, the universe will say to you, bet, no money for you. And that's what happened to me. And my mindset has changed so much where now I see, unfortunately, I do need money. Our people do need money. We get to have money. And then we can go and we can continue to make impact, to give back to our communities, which is things that we're already doing. I mean, Janice, I know you have like a Zumba class coming up soon where profits will be donated. I mean, and so my challenge to people is to question whether what you're telling yourself is true. Do you really think that you would go and become a part of the problem? Or do you think that you would use your money for good? And I think the answer will very obviously be, yeah, I probably would use it for good.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. Mariel, your content, your podcast, everything that you're doing is so inspiring. And I know that people are going to want to find out more about you, how they can work with you, where we can find you. So tell us where we can find the show, social media, all the details.
You can find me on Instagram at Money for Mujeres. And then you can also find me at moneyformujeres.com. If you want access to a free mini bootcamp, you can go to moneyformujeres.com/fix your money. And those are the three places where you can find me. And I hope to see you soon.
I love it. We're going to have all those details in the episode show notes. Thank you so much for being here. And make sure to tune in to the Chinga Tu Money podcast as well. I love to see the incredible impact that Latinas specifically are having in these money conversations because, for those who don't know, we are the largest growing demographic in this country. And part of what we're seeing now is, I think, an acknowledgement that America is going to be brown. And it's the last gasp to push that agenda aside. And unfortunately, that's not going to happen. And thanks to the work that you're doing, we're just going to keep empowering mujeres to have some freaking money because that's how we start to change the world. So thank you for the work that you do. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me on.